Yo, what's going on? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. So Darren Till just got released from the UFC. He made it official per his Instagram. Let me tell you guys why this could actually be a really good move for Darren Till's career. So I feel as though I shared a common reaction to this Darren Till news. First off, disappointment. Darren Till, man, he was such an intriguing prospect. On his rise to the UFC, he was obviously undefeated until that title challenge, a story of a cautionary tale of why to not really just thrust guys into a title picture when they're not ready for it. Again, Darren Till is a good example of this. But again, my initial reaction to this news was, oh no, Darren Till's done. He's been lazy the last couple of years, really been slacking with training. He's been plagued with injuries. He's just done with the UFC. Over the past 2 years and really at the start of the pandemic, he started getting really into other business ventures, marketing himself outside of the octagon, outside of MMA, trying to, in a sense, become a celebrity. The entire thing he was doing with Khamzat Chimaev was kind of him trying to create another market for himself. If he's not going to be winning MMA fights, how am I going to stay relevant in the sphere of MMA? How am I going to stay relevant and keep my income up? I'm going to start doing NFTs. I'm going to start kind of caring about non-mixed martial art things in terms of inside of the octagon, getting myself better. I'm only 30 years old, and he really kind of stepped away from that. So again, my initial reactions were, man, this is the end for Darren Till. But I started to think about it more, and in my opinion, this can actually be a career-saving move for Darren Till. So he's lost his last 3 fights, and after his recent loss against Dricus Du Plessis, where in the first round he was just held up against the cage the entire time, not being able to get out of that clinch position up against the cage, just getting his face battered in, having an interesting second round where he kind of started to come back there, and then he got finished pretty quickly on the ground. He tapped pretty quick to a submission. I think he had a self-realization after this Dricus fight where he went, damn, man, I remember when I was the young prospect. I remember when the UFC wanted to build up my name by giving me an older guy who had a huge name in the UFC. I remember when I fought Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and I had a signature, incredible win that really built my career, built my name, built my legacy. Are they really trying to do that with me now against Dricus Du Plessis? Am I the Donald Cerrone now? Am I the old guy the UFC is just going to thrust young contenders on so they can beat me? No way, man, I'm letting that happen. So to me, that's one of the factors of why Darren Till wants to step away from the UFC a little bit. Another reason I started to think of is he's perpetually injured. He's constantly just chronically injured. Maybe he wants to step away for a year or 2 or 3 and not be in the USADA pool, use some remedies that are against the USADA testing policies, and really get himself healed. I'm in the camp of it's really bad to juice, it's really bad to cheat and be on steroids and be on certain performance-enhancing drugs, but I am also in the camp of in some cases, when a guy is chronically injured, I think it's good for them to take some certain banned substances to really build up that strength and really build up that flexibility and just start to being able to train and improve, because if you're perpetually injured, there's just no positive. So if he wants to step outside of the USADA testing pool and really just heal and recover for the next year or 2, I completely understand. But then I started to think as well, I think this would be a perfect opportunity to go to a Bellator, go to a PFL, and just not face killers. Darren Till has been thrown to the absolute wolves. I know he lost to Tyron Woodley, who at the time was an absolute killer. He lost to Jorge Masvidal, who really started his incredible rise to stardom at that point. He lost to Robert Whittaker, who in my opinion is one of the most technical fighters on planet Earth. He lost to Brunson, who's a really bad stylistic matchup to him. And then he lost to Dricus Du Plessis. And after that Dricus Du Plessis fight, he literally said, yeah, Darren Till's not strong enough to be at 185. I love Darren Till. I have all the respect in the world for him as an opponent, but he straight up should not be at 185. So that brings me to another point. I think he wants to take the next year or 2 off to really build back his frame, build back a solid, good frame for 170. Darren Till had that good advantage at 170, of being a long, lanky guy for the division. And now at 185, he's soft, he's weak. He doesn't have a good 185 frame. So if he could use the next year or two to really recover, not be in the USADA testing pool, get really strong and built and healthy at 170, be training year-round, not go into a training camp, Darren Till, out of shape. A training camp isn't to get into fighting shape. A training camp is to get you prepared for your opponent. So I think this is something that Darren Till is going to finally start to understand. He's 30 years old. He realizes, damn, I only have about 6 or 7 more years in this game if I really try hard, if I really go hard at this. Let me get some fights in Bellator under my belt. Let me go on a 2-fight win streak. Let me fight against some guys where I can, in my training camp, not really specifically train for them, but specifically train to overall get my game better, get my game so I can get into the UFC. The thing about Darren Till is I think he can beat a lot of UFC 170ers. I think he can beat a lot of guys in the UFC at 185, but because of the nature of the promotion of the UFC, they're never going to not strategically place Darren Till up against an either A, older big name, or a younger guy they want to build their name off of Darren Till's. So Darren Till said, screw that. I'm not facing the top 5, the top 10, the top 15 guys in the division right now. I want to face some guys who are the 20th, 30th, 40th best 170ers, 185ers in the world, because I'm still a top 25 170er on planet Earth, but I just need to prove that to myself, and I need to prove that to the fans. So in my opinion, if Darren Till really takes this year or two to really recover, get to 170, get to a healthy place in terms of his mental health and his physical health, build up a 2 or 3 fight win streak in Bellator, I think he'll be back in the UFC at no time, and he's going to start to be able to actually beat some bigger names in the sport like he once did with a wonderboy Thompson, with a Donald Cerrone.